I think deep down, every single person has a desire to be free, a desire to pursue their chosen goal. Despite this desire to live life on their own terms, most of humanity, whether wholly or in part, has lived life on terms laid down by someone else. And I think the biggest question that us as humans chase is, how do I live a life on my own terms? I think if you were to ask anybody who moved out to the country or onto a homestead why they decided to pack their bags and to make that jump, it would probably be because they were trying to pursue a simpler life, or trying to pursue a life that was more freeing than the one that they were living. And that was our story. When my wife and I bought our property, we intentionally sought out a place that was out of the city, that was quiet, and that had space that we could grow into it over the years. But before this process happened, we had to be very serious and intentional about the decision that we were going to make. We had to ask ourselves, will we actually be more free? Because this life can be very romanticized. It's easy to think that homesteading is at all times calming and relaxing and peaceful and quiet, and it certainly can be at times when done right and done with care. But I think there are three big things that every person must consider before they buy a property or before they buy a homestead. And the first of which being, can you afford it? Because there would be nothing worse than buying a property in the pursuit of freedom, but only to find yourself working day and night just to be able to pay for it, just to be able to pay the mortgage or to pay for some of the tools and the equipment needed to get a homestead up and running and to maintain it. Outside of the property itself, if those things aren't factored in, it's really easy to see how money can be blown so fast on the homestead. There's always another project that can be done. There's always something that can be updated or that can be fixed. Without proper planning and without fiscal responsibility, the homestead of your dreams could easily turn into a nightmare if you're not careful. And I don't say this to scare you, but I do say this to prepare you, because this financial piece is probably the biggest thing to consider before buying a homestead. The next thing is, are you ready to put in more effort to maintain the relationships that you have? Relationships with friends and family who may be in the city. It's a lot easier to drive 15 minutes spontaneously than it is an hour or 2 hours to go see your friends or family on a whim. Most of those trips that we take back to see our friends and family are pretty planned out, because we have to make sure the animals are taken care of, the house is set, ready to go for when we leave. There's a lot of things that go into even just short little 2-hour trips. And this might seem obvious, but I ask the question, are you ready for that? And the last thing I think every single person needs to carefully answer, and answer honestly, is, are you cut out for this life? Because not everyone is, and that's okay. Truthfully, we didn't have that answer when we moved out here. We took a huge leap of faith, and thankfully I would say it's working out so far. But life in the country, life out of the city, can be challenging. You don't have the same amenities that you do in the city. You don't have the same shops and restaurants. Sometimes the seasons aren't always easy. Winter in Wisconsin, it's not easy when you're out in the country. Being prepared to do tasks and chores that you wouldn't have to in the city, or you wouldn't even think about doing in the city, all goes into determining if this lifestyle is a lifestyle for you. Ultimately, the decision we made was not only the biggest, but most challenging decision we made. But I believe it was worth it. If you're not ready to buy a homestead right now, or not in a position, there are still things that you can do to live a more self-sufficient life. And we covered that in this video right here.